Thanks for joining us today with Beyond the Chamber podcast. I'm Kelly Richman, the owner of Lifetime Eclipse Photography, and I'll be your host today, and this is my good friend
Matthew Ferraro, President and CEO of the Katy Area Chamber. Thank you, Matt, for joining us.
Honored to be here.
Yeah, we're excited. We're going to break down Matt.
All right, let's go.
Yeah. Matt Schomburg. So a couple things just to start. Like, you own State Farm here, or a... Call it. You're going to cut this because
keep
I'm...
I've got a State Farm agency.
Okay.
In Katy.
So you've done that, or your family has been in State Farm for a long time. So how did you get started, or what made Matt think he wanted to do that for a living?
Yeah, so ironically, I did not have a choice in the matter. So my grandfather was a State Farm agent, so I always grew up knowing that I wanted to be a State Farm agent. As early as elementary, you have to write those silly little papers about what do you want to be when you grow up, and all the kids want to be cops and firefighters and doctors and lawyers. Mine was, I want to work at State Farm, and my grandfather's office was walking distance to McDonald's. So I said, I want to walk at State Farm and eat McDonald's for lunch every day. Right? 9-year-old goals. So he had 5 kids. 4 of them went into insurance, 3 of them went into State Farm insurance. One of those is my mama. So when I graduated from A&M in '99, my dad, who was obviously close to my mom's business, I accepted a job. The name of the company was Wallace. I was going to be selling, I don't know, something, widgets or whatever. And my dad said, son, I need you to call and quit. He goes, I really want you to work for State Farm. I said, well, Dad, State Farm's not really, they haven't given me a job offer. I said, I've got a job offer. I've already accepted. And so kind of a leap of faith. I trusted my dad, and within a month I had a job working for State Farm in the claims world. And a few years later I had an opportunity to become a State Farm agent, one of the youngest.
Yeah. So, and so your mom did insurance as well?
She still does. Yeah, she still does. So, and fun story, we office together now. And so
she offices there?
She does. Yeah, so her office was in Sugar Land for 30 plus years, and about 4 years ago we merged. And that is not fun because my mama she's always had trouble with team.
Your mama might hear this.
My mama might hear this. And she is just a micromanager. And you see, my agency's 3 times, and I'm not saying this out of, I'm saying this out of humility. But my office is 3 times, my agency's 3 times as big as my mom's. And she's like, Matthew, we need to do it this way. I said, Mama, trust the process and stop micromanaging me. I've proven I can do this. Right? And so we had a couple of challenging years, growing pains, but it's working out really, really neat now, and it's cool to be able to share some of that time. And my brother works there too.
I did not know this.
Yeah, if you walk in, they have the family trees and the headshots of all the team that work there. And there's 2 more Schomburgs on there than just Matt. So
well, I knew they were like agents, or I just think it was, I guess that they actually office stuff in there. So.
One big happy family.
So, your childhood, you kind of grew up doing that, like insurance. How did that shape you, like overall how did your childhood shape you overall as an adult?
Oh, I don't know. So this is funny. So my wife, Heather.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Heather was, it's funny. She's on Facebook here. There was a guy he's actually become a videographer, similar to where we are now, but he filmed stuff in high school, and we're old, right? So this is mid 90s, and he was filming stuff, and so she's found this. She made me watch an hour and a half of her cheerleading program, football game, pep rally from high school, like 1994. And she was like, look, there I am. And then 30 minutes later, look, there I am. I'm like, oh, Heather, you're killing her. So she was very popular, well-known in the yearbook. In the yearbook, you flip to the last page, and you see she's on every page. And I had one picture in the yearbook, right? So I was kind of a nerd, very small, 5'5", 105 pounds when I started high school. So I was always very, very shy.
You were shy?
Very shy, yeah. So I consider myself to be an introvert, ironically.
Yeah, we talked about this at leadership.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. So I think for me, kind of overcoming, the obstacle, high school is hard. I have a July birthday, so I've always been the youngest in the class. Mm-hmm. And I was, look at my baby face now, right? I was a late bloomer. I didn't grow up here until I was 35.
I'm still working on mine.
Yeah. So to be the youngest person in the class, the smallest person in the class, it took me a lot of time, a lot of those years just to build confidence.
Yeah.
And so I think over time, my childhood was really about how can I how can I turn into somebody who has confidence, who's got, a personality, and so it was challenging.
What things challenged you or drew you out of that shyness, or did you put yourself in certain situations to challenge you in that aspect?
Or do you feel like you're still kind of there? Like,
No.
are you an introvert? Like,
No.
still feel like you're...
I'm an introvert where I can only deal so long, but I also, I probably, especially in college, I would go, and again, probably a terrible story to tell you, but Heather and I would go out on Friday night, we'd go to Carney's or a bar in College Station, and I would go to the left and she would go to the right, and I'd make sure I'd talk to everybody. Like, it was cheers to me. I loved being in that scene. And still, we go to a chamber gala, which are a lot of fun. I'm going to go and walk around the room. I'm going to try and talk to everybody that I know. And she's going to sit at the table and look at me and be mad at me because I'm not sitting next to her. So, yeah, I would say I'm out of the introverted season of life. And have gotten much more into, building relationships. Right, and Katy's got such a good group of people, it's easy to do.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. Did you go to college, like, with a vision of doing something else besides insurance?
I don't know what I wanted to do in college.
It's hard. Like, you have kids that are going to college. I have a child that's going to college.
They don't have a clue.
Right.
Just like myself, I'm sure you guys. But when I went to college, I had no clue. God's grace. I went to A&M. I would not have been accepted into A&M if I had to meet today's standards. And I was dumbed down. I made a 2.5 my first semester, 2.1 my second semester. Just barely made it into the business school, but we only needed a 2.5 back then. So I snuck into the business school, got a marketing degree, ironically, if you can imagine where I go with my State Farm agency from a marketing perspective. So it all worked really well. And one of my favorite classes at A&M was a marketing class where we had to sell Scooby treats. I don't know why Scooby treats, but we had to come up with the features and the benefits. I'm like, oh, these are full of vitamin C and sugar. So I think about what I did for a living in all those years is a new State Farm agent, just running appointment after appointment and selling the features and the benefits and the value of my product and my brand. And so it all worked out real well. But I had no clue what I wanted to do in college. I knew I never wanted to come back to Houston because my parents were in Houston. So
you wanted to spread your wings and fly. Yeah. So what ultimately drew you back to the Katy Fulcher area?
Heather. Yeah, she ruined it for us. So she's older than me, which in college was really cool. Now I'm married to an old woman, not as good. So she graduated first. So she graduated a semester before I did. Got a job working for Foley's, if you remember Foley's, kind of a Dillard spinoff. No longer around. In Houston, the buying office was downtown Houston. And so I followed her, got a job with State Farm eventually, about a month after I graduated. And when I started with State Farm, you had to be an internal employee of the company for 3 years before you could apply to become a State Farm agent. So that changed about 2 years into my State Farm career. And so I said, oh, I'm out of here. I'm going to, I knew that I was working for State Farm in order to become a State Farm agent. And so there was an opening for me to go to Richman and Rosenberg, which would have been about 10 miles from my mom's office. And I hated when I would, people were like, well, hey, what are you doing now? I'm like, oh, I work for State Farm. And they go, oh, you work for your mommy? I'm like, no, I don't work for my mom. State Farm's a giant company, 90,000 employees. Why would I work for my mom? And it was frustrating to me. So I wanted to be far enough away from Sugarland that I could be me and I wouldn't be under her shadow, because she was very successful as a wedding business owner. And I had to get out of her shadow in order to create my own agency. And so that's how we ended up in Katy. There was an opportunity. State Farm said, "Hey, we've got a spot in Katy if you want it. Interview for it, and it's yours." And so that's how we started.
So you started just by yourself? You were the only agent, right?
I know. My interview, you should have seen me when I was interviewing new people to work for me. I'm like, it's going to be awesome. Me and you, and we got nothing to do. I was interviewing, and I'm like, I wouldn't work for me. This is terrible.
You got any openings now?
Yeah, no kidding. So I started as what's called a scratch agent, which meant when I pulled my report, I had 0 cars insured, 0 homeowners policies, and no life insurance. I had all zeros on day one.
But does everybody start that way?
No. Okay. So there's you go in either scratch or you go in with an assignment. And so let's say my mom retires one day. Well, State Farm owns our book of business. So if she were to retire, they would take her book of business and split it amongst existing agents, or hire a new agent and just plug and play.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity for you to take her book, or is it because she's in that different area?
Well, she's in Katy now. A lot of her customer base is in Sugar Land. So unfortunately, State Farm does not have something where we can hand down our book. We can't sell our book, so they own our book. They buy us out over time.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a small portion of her book that would come to me according to the State Farm rules, but yeah, I mean the bulk of it, no.
Okay. So you started from scratch.
From scratch.
Literally is the word.
Mm-hmm.
And your book of business is pretty big now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just you by yourself.
Just
And
me
how
by
many employees or how many agents do you have working for you?
Then or
Now.
now? Yeah. So we're up to 15 employees. Maybe a little more if you count my mom. She doesn't work real hard.
15.2.
Yeah.
That's so bad.
Yeah, and so we do. We run a very big business, and when you combine the two, we're well over 30 million in revenue that's coming in on an annual basis. A lot of work. I mean, it's busy. I learned early on in my career that it was much easier to keep employees and keep them happy, and so I spoil my team. I take them places. I give them cell phones and cars, and I want to make sure they're as happy as can be, and that they have the best job ever, and that they tell people. I want them to be proud of where they work, and in turn, I don't have the turnover that I used to have as a new agent that expected so much of employees. Right? I wanted them to be me, and that just wasn't going to happen.
Sometimes you're so good to them, you scare them off.
I do. I do that too.
So how would you say, what would you say, or I don't know exactly how I'm trying to say it, but how your business has evolved? What changes have you had to make from your business going from that to what it is now?
Yeah, so it probably takes me a little while to learn. I'm a hard worker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember early in my career, so I started in 2002, and about 3 months in, obviously we had 9/11, and that changed the world forever.
Sure.
In the State Farm world, we were losing a lot of money. There was a mold crisis in the state of Texas. April of that year, we introduced a new product line that made us very, very uncompetitive. And the agents around me were very negative. This is the worst time ever. We can't do this. I didn't know any better. I was just a new kid. I would pick up the phone and meet with people, and they kept coming in, and we kept writing policies. So I've just, through hard work ethic, have been able to kind of outpace other people. I'll tell you that just for your question, what changed my life, in 2008, our third son was born. He was born with a heart defect. We spent several weeks in the NICU at that point. 9 months into his life, he had open heart surgery. And so it just kind of shifted my priorities a little bit, but not being in the office for the amount of time that I wasn't in the office for. So I missed about 2 months of work that year, dealing with Miller's situation. And so I was forced to learn how to delegate, right? Mm-hmm. And to be successful as a business owner, one of our required readings was the E-Myth. As a new State Farm agent, and as a new agent, you don't necessarily get it, but the concept is you have to work on your business, not in your business, right? And until Miller's situation, I was in the business. I was the lead salesperson, the janitor, the HR rep, the lead service person. I was answering billing calls. I answered the majority of the phone calls. I greeted customers. I baked cookies. I mean, everything. I did the marketing as far as State Farm would let me. I got in trouble for being a little creative sometimes. So.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Well, it's definitely changed. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's night and day.
What drew you to get involved in the community in the ways you have so far?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So,
or how do you pick where you're involved? Because
you're
involved in a lot.
Two-part question.
Yeah. So I got a phone call in 2009. So I tell you, I don't know if this is a Christian podcast or what we're talking about here, but I'll share my faith a little bit with you. So,
talking a great deal about everybody's faith.
Yeah. So Heather and I like to say that God sent us a son with a broken heart in order to heal our broken heart, right? And so I found Jesus probably a little later in life, than most people. So, Miller's born in 2008, and so in 2009, I was thirsty, right? And so I had up to that point, we didn't have a lot of money because I would pour all my monies back into the business. But from an earthly standpoint, we were successful, right? We were running a 7-figure business, but I was missing something, right? And so Miller he's a big reason. He's a big part of my testimony. So I met with a friend who's a customer of mine, who's a full-time missionary, and he says, Matt, I have my Bible on my desk. We just started talking. I told him, I said, I'm looking into seminaries. He goes, you gotta go, or at least look into the College of Biblical Studies. And so in 2009, I went back to school. I got my second bachelor's degree in Christian leadership, and so that was a very, I'd already had my A&M degree, so I got to skip the first 2 years, but it was a 2-year program, accelerated, and just 2 incredibly special years for me. And, God just opened up doors, right? So in 2009, I get a phone call.
Where did you go to do that at?
In Houston. Okay. It's a school in Houston. Real university, incredible professors. Most of them co-teach at Dallas Theological Seminary. So Heather likes to say I went to seminary. I didn't go to seminary. I just got another bachelor's degree. I don't have a master's or an MBA. I'm not that smart. And I look back at some of the work I turned in, and it was terrible. And these teachers kept giving me A's. I'm like, this can't be real.
I mean, you've said it twice now, like you're not very smart. But obviously you are, Matt. You are very,
just hardworking.
Yeah.
Just hardworking.
Creative. It's creative. But you're persistent as well. Achieving your goals that you set for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So 2009, I got a phone call from Dennis Kerwin. He was a board member for the Katy, I guess back then it was the Kinley YMCA.
Okay.
And, at that point, we probably had 6 or 7 vehicles driving around town that had my picture on it. I worked out at the YMCA every morning. I was doing like an Indian and princess guide with my boys, some sort of little camping program that the Y had. So he said, we've seen you around. We want you to be on this board. And I had no clue what that meant, but that was really my introduction. So I said, okay, well, I'll come and meet with you. And so through that process, they offered me an opportunity to be on the board, and I fell in love with it, right? And it's interesting because I guess it was 2011. I was doing a project for school, and so what my project was, I said, I am going to be. At that point, I had just taken over the fundraising chair for the Y board, and I said, so this fundraising project is going to be my project for school. How can I meet with people and what do these phone calls look like? And so it mirrored. It was just the timing of it was perfect. So I got involved with the Y. I did that for 6 years. I mentioned that my second degree is in Christian leadership. So I think one of my spiritual gifts is leadership. I absolutely love to lead a team, to lead my family. And ironically, we're almost, if you put me in a position, right? So the Y board, I took over. I was the chair for 2 years. Most chairs were 1-year chairs. I loved it, but my 6 years was up, and I rolled off. And Stan Stanley, who was a mentor of mine, did some sign work for me. We were able to get close. Came to me and says, Matt, we have this new thing called the KDSD Education Foundation. He goes, I really want you to be a part of this. And I said, Stan, boards are expensive. I just rolled off from 6 years. I was 2 years the board chair. I said, I really don't want to do it, right? And so Janet Tice came, who's the ED there, and she says, you should do this. I said, it was easy for me. I'm like, nope. And she was on the board of the Y, so I knew Janet. But Stan came back, and he goes, Matt, I'm not asking you, right? I'm telling you. And I always loved visiting with Stan. He would always tell me, he goes, Matt, Katy needs future leaders like you. We need young people. We've got a great group of older guys, but we need the next generation. And that was, extremely humbling. And
especially coming from a community icon like Stan Stanley.
He was incredible. I just wish we could have spent more time with him. And he was obviously on the board of the Education Foundation before he passed. And so really made introductions and made that an extremely comfortable process for me. So come August, I will start my 3rd year as the board president for that group. So through my board work and through my business, I've been able to meet just incredible people. And as a result, doors keep opening up, right? I am on one board that I don't love. this Katy chamber board that
Wow.
somehow.
I knew he was going there.
Wow.
No, so I just.
Thanks, boss.
Yeah. So, obviously we did this Katy Chamber Leadership Program,
Yes.
which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so for business owners or for those looking for an opportunity to see how the community works and runs, to meet great people.
What do you feel like you got out of leadership? Because you probably knew a handful of people going into that.
I did. Yeah, I did, which made it a little easier. But I didn't know everybody, and so
Right.
got to meet some folks, got to travel a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So and again, for me, I love seeing behind the curtain, right? So how does the school district run? What's going on with our police and our city works? And so it just to peel the curtain a little bit and to learn a little bit more about the chamber and to go to DC and see the big chamber. And it's just, my wife gets mad. She's like, "You're not going to be a pastor and you're not going to be a politician." And I want to do both, right? So, for me to know a little bit more.
Yeah, I think leadership kind of like you said, you know about the things, but you don't know the insides of like Katy ISD or the insides of the police department, or just being able to dive into those things, or even like KCM, I wouldn't have known all the things that KCM does without being in leadership and being able to see those facilities.
And Katy needs more people plugged in. Right, we have some amazing nonprofits, but we need people to get behind them,
Right,
to keep them going. Right, I mean they need help. And I had lunch today with a young guy. He's transitioning between jobs, longtime radio guy, and he goes, I don't know Matthew real well at the chamber, but I told him I was looking for a job, and he said, well, here's my Rolodex. Pick 20 people, and I'll make personal introductions. Right, and so people need to be involved with our local chamber because of something like that, right? He didn't even know this guy. He's like, "Hey, here's my Rolodex," right? To open it up like that and to make those connections, it's pretty special.
Yeah, or even earlier we were just kind of talking about, even if it's not like connecting them one-on-one, but being able to go to an event or a lunch or just be around people that maybe are in that same, situation or want to meet people, or there's so many things that we can do from that aspect to help people starting out.
JR calls it a plug. We're plugs.
JR.
That's one of our leadership friends.
Yes, he definitely is. What would you say to people that have done something like leadership or even the Katy ISD leadership and they're done with it and it's over? Like, how do you do this big program, you go through it, you learn great things, but it's over. What do you do with something like that once it's done? Like, how do you stay involved or stay committed to that? When you're in it, you're in the trenches, and you're like, how can we do this, and how can we, lead our community? But when you're done,
you go back to your busy life.
Right, yeah. So what would you say?
Can I steal that one?
Yeah, please.
When the program is kind of designed to open the eyes of everybody going through to the opportunities to give back to the community, and the goal is once your class graduates and you've seen everything and experienced everything, and you have that hunger to get engaged and involved. Find something that fits what you want to accomplish, or what might need help. What's that natural marriage between what you want your legacy to be and how you can help an organization that has a similar parallel. And I try and urge people, get involved in your local nonprofits, whether it be a chamber would be great because we want to cultivate our own leadership, or we want to also cultivate the leadership within this community. And that, twofold, it helps you as a business leader get more engaged and plugged in, keeps the chamber engaged and plugged in those different organizations so we can continue to help build this community from the ground, not from the ground up. It's a thriving community, but help enhance what it is.
So true.
Would you say the same?
Yeah, what are you passionate about, right? And so I've taught my boys for years. I said, my personal motto boils down to the 3 words. They all start with T, right? Time, treasure, talent. What can I do in my life to share my time, treasure, talent, right? And so when I'm looking at something, when I'm betting something, does it hit my 3T motto? Yeah. So.
Tell us a little bit about your boys.
Which you and Heather, I will say, you and Heather have done a great job of raising those boys. They are all very kind, very nice young men.
Yeah.
So far, we've got one we're a little worried about. Our youngest, Heather says she goes, "You've given up. You're old. You're a terrible dad now."
He's still very polite.
He's a great
from
kid.
an outside perspective.
He's a great kid. So I've got 4 boys. My oldest just turned 20 this week. He's a freshman at Baylor. Special kid, number 7 in the class, super high SAT score. The kid's probably pushing 6'5". We were together this weekend. And I stand next to him and I feel short. And I'm like, this is terrible. How did this happen?
Where does he get his height from?
I don't know. I mean, I'm 6'2", but to stand next to him and he dwarfs me now. He's put on 20 pounds of muscle in college. He's crushing it. He's 3.75 GPA. So the coolest thing about Tyler, my oldest, right now, is he has such a heart for the Lord, right? He has chosen, he's totally different than my path. When I was 18, I was an idiot, making dumb choices, maybe indulging a little bit too much. He has chosen not to drink. He's rushing a Christian fraternity. He's coming home this summer and he wants to do children's ministry. I'm like, this is a 20-year-old kid. I said, where does he have, where does he get this? And he wants to minor in religion, right? And just warms my heart to know that's what he's pursuing with his life. And his favorite classes so far have been his religion classes. I know eventually he'll come to me and say, "Dad, I want to be a priester." That's what we call the pastors and the priest. We put them together.
Y'all have some great words.
Yeah. So that's my oldest, just a superstar of a kid. Maverick's my number 2 son. He's 18 now, going to Texas A&M. So proud of him. He's probably, it's funny, each one of my kids kind of has their little spot. So Maverick's always been our most athletic kid. He got caught with COVID. He got caught up in that COVID deal where kids were not learning. And so I think that affected his school outcome. Not to say that he's not smart. Obviously, he got an A&M, so he did well, but he won number 7 in the class, right? But he was a 4-sport varsity athlete. We got him a side little hustle working at the Chamber of Commerce right now. But the kid's an entrepreneur, and to see somebody at such a young age that doesn't need to work per se, because his mom and dad take good care of him. He builds fence on the side. He cleans trash cans. He had a car wash business that he started. He's spoken to the Katy Chamber in the past about his business. I mean, he's just a kid.
He started a basketball league.
He started a basketball league, 14 teams of 3. Nearly 2,000 people follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
And the kids, and he's just got, I don't know the word, but he's got that draw where people just want to be around him. It's it's a gift. And so it'll be interesting to see where he goes, where he takes
What he does with that.
Yeah. So he's a special kid. And then obviously we talked a little bit about Miller. He's more than just a heart defect. So fun little praise. When Miller was born with his heart defect, he had open heart surgery 9 months in. We always knew he would have to have another heart procedure. So he had his second heart surgery on March 8th. So just a little over a month ago, 2 months ago at this point. And he's recovering, he's doing great. He gets off these meds that are governing him a little bit on June 1st. So we're Heather and I joke, we're like, oh hell, I don't know if we're ready for Miller 2.0. Miller 1.0 is a lot. So we feel like we are raising Jim Carrey. He's such a smart ass, but he's so funny.
He's funny?
God, his timing, and he's 15, and his timing with adults, it's like, you're not supposed to be that funny, you're a kid. So if you've ever called my voicemail, he leaves a terrible message, and it's funny, he's been doing it since he was a kid, and they were used to be really sweet, and as he's gotten older, I get a new phone, he changes the voicemail, it's just gotten worse and worse, and now he's out there kissing my mom or something. It's terrible. But it's going to be fun to see where that kid goes.
He will do something.
Yeah. And so, you talk about his faith too. All my boys are incredible. I could share a story about Maverick praying over our family when we were at church camp in January. FCA just came to their high school. And so Miller is going to be the youngest FCA student rep at the high school next year. So we're pretty excited about that. And so he's really a leader in his group, so he brings others along with him, whether it's beach retreat or what we call fusion at our church, FCA meetings. So it's neat to see. And so we've hosted Mavericks, a group of seniors. Heather and I do a Bible study at our house, along with the pastor. We co-teach. We do that every Monday. And so that we had our last session last night. It's kind of sad. End of an era. And so we're going to duplicate that now with Miller's group. And they're such bad kids. Maverick's group was good. Miller's group is not good. So we got a lot of work to do. They're all so bad. Yeah. And then Riggs is our youngest, the one I gave up on. And he's kind of our theater kid. And it's funny because he's got older brothers that say, hey, in order to succeed in high school, you got to play football and you got to follow this path. And he's like, I just want to do varsity theater. And he's hysterical and he's super talented. He had the lead in the 6th grade play. He had 52 or 57 lines, and the kid was incredible. On the stage, off the stage, just made the show. Man, it was really, really neat to see him. Not a shy bone in his body, not afraid to talk to anybody. Heather has a friend running for school board right now, and so she's going door knocking, which I think is so funny. I shouldn't say that. I'm very happy Heather is supporting her friend. So when she was door knocking, Riggs like, Mom, I got it. Let me do the script. So they're door knocking together, and I'm just sitting there giggling on the
car.
On the street. Yeah.
Like, I'll drive y'all.
Yeah, I'll drive y'all and watch from a distance. So, and she knows that's my bread and butter. I would love to do that, but she's a big girl, and I wanted her to get out there
and do it.
Get it done. So a little bit about my crew. Yeah.
What do you feel like, either personally or professionally? Like, what's your biggest accomplishment?
Man, for me, I think it's probably my boys. I have a strong marriage to Heather, which has taken some work. And our marriage was, when I was early in the business, I loved State Farm, right? Like, that was my addiction. And I don't say that lightly because we understand addiction in my family. But I was addicted to what I did. I loved working. I loved the feeling of finishing top of the company. And Heather came to me and she says, hey, something's got to give. I'm here with, 2 young kids. And you're not here. I mean, I was at the office at 7 a.m. I wasn't getting home until midnight. For me, it was, hey, I'm working. Our bills are getting turned off, right? Because I'm throwing money back into business. So obviously saving our marriage and where it is today, the biblical worldview that we follow. And then just, raising kids that have a heart for the Lord and that are pursuing things that are, that are really bigger than their age, right? Such a blessing to have that.
This might be a similar question, but as we wrap up, what do you want your legacy to be in this community?
Ooh, man.
Not necessarily from the business side, but from the
Matt
Schomburg
side. I didn't think about the business side.
Very good. Perfect.
That's good.
Yeah. So I rolled off the whiteboard, I think it was either 2013 or 2014. And I loved my group. There were 37 of us, incredible leaders in the community. Harry Chapman, who's become a good friend of mine, Leonard Merrill was on that board. Peter McElwain was on that board, who's a namesake for Katy ISD. Dick Jack was a mentor of mine. Steve Pearson was an old city council member. Brian Haynes ran the YMCA, did such a great job when he was here during his tenure. And I remember, kind of giving my farewell speech, if you will. I said, if anything, I would like to be just remembered as a servant leader, right? Somebody that gave back to the community, and that's really where my 3 T's came from, right? If and luckily my business affords me time, and so I'm able to serve, right? I don't have a whole lot of talents. I can't give a lot of that. Luckily, we have a little bit of cash flow with State Farm, so we're constantly trying to figure out new things to. I just got back from the ranch that running through in the auction item. Gosh, it was so much fun. I forgot. I had no clue what I paid for that.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, we wanted those funds to go to
more chamber programs. Much like this one.
So I have one last question before we stop. So I kind of mentioned it before, but not so many, but a lot of people come to me and say, like, Matt Schomburg, like, I'm so intimidated by Matt. So, like, tell us how do you break that down? Like, you're just Matt. Like, you're
Yeah.
a funny Matt, you know, just a genuine guy. That's how I see it anyway. So how do you break that down?
I think you got to lean on a kid. So I told my kids, just Mary Beth had mentioned, you know, we were going around talking about first impressions. Mary Beth was part of our leadership group.
Yeah.
And she mentioned that to me.
Oh, she did? Yeah.
I said, intimidate. Gosh, that's the last thing. You know,
Yeah.
extremely like that. You know, hopefully I don't come across like that. I wear jeans with holes and t-shirts.
Sometimes no shoes in the
I
office.
think
Yeah.
people look up to you. I mean, I think in the community.
Yeah.
So
Which is awesome, and I'm glad we have that reputation. So I told my kids that, and, you know, they just make fun of me. Dad, you're an idiot, right? You know, and so no, please don't be,
yeah,
you know, intimidated at all. That's
you're
the
just
last
a genuine guy, funny guy.
Yeah, for sure,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us for the Beyond the Chamber podcast.
Yeah, super fun.
So fun to see you and
was.
like get to know a little bit about. I mean, for everybody else to know a little bit about your family life and your boys and Heather and like how you guys kind of came from how you built your business, I guess, from scratch to what it is now.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was from scratch.
Yeah, a lot of people miss that, right? You look around and you say, "Oh, he's got a lot of vehicles in the community. Gosh, he's stepping up to his picture on there."
Or on a bus.
On a bus. But you miss a lot of you don't see the 7 a.m.s to 2 a.m.
It's you talk about that, and you know when I first got into Katy, and you know I connected with Rick right away. And you know, you see the photos on the cars, you see the name on the building, and you're like, wow, you know, congratulations, good job. And then talking with Rick, you know, what do you know about Schomburg and everything? And he's like, that guy deserves everything he's gotten because he's put in so many hours that nobody's seen, and has done so much more than anybody else has seen. Like, that is somebody that the community needs to look up to, and that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And that was probably within the first week or two, meeting Rick, who eventually came onto our team, thanks to you, actually.
We're happy for Rick.
Yeah, we're happy for Rick.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I'm
Rick, if you're listening,
for
Rick,
him.
you're driving awesome too much.
I actually saw him this morning. But no, I think you've done an incredible job of gracing this community with yourself, your team, and your time. I mean, that's a big commitment for most people, and you dedicating that and offering that up for us alone, the chamber, the other boards you've served on, the community as a whole. Everybody knows you're somebody that will be here to support moving forward, and we can't appreciate that enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we'll continue to serve.
Yeah, we appreciate it.